Hi everyone, welcome to Rocket Rose Art. My name is Jeff, and in this video I want to talk about devitrification, or commonly called Devit, and that scummy bottom that you can get on your glass art and your cabs. They both look horrible, and I'm going to tell you how you can fix it as far as your cabs are concerned, but also a bit about it, what it is and how you can avoid it. So hopefully stick around and we'll get into it very shortly. Okay, before we get too in-depth in this, I'm just going to run over what I'm going to cover. I'm going to talk about the Devit and that scummy bottom on your cabs. I'm going to tell you what it is, why it happens, and how you can avoid it in some cases. And then I'm going to show you how I fix it on cabs, and this is mainly for cabs. So some of the discussion will talk about fixing it on other things like glass art, but in this particular case, my process is more specific to cabs. So let's get on with it. So these are the cabs I want to talk about. They're a mixture. Some have got Devit on them. Some have just got a scummy bottom, but I'll just go through them and I'll show you the difference so you can see later, once I've tumbled them and polished them, just how much they change. Now, excuse my hands, I've got a bit of staining on them because I've been doing a bit of gardening, and some plants like the stain and I just can't get it off. So, first one here is, you can see the crazing around that. That's Devit, and that's actually because that particular glass is prone to Devit. At the back of it, it does have that sort of scummy bit around the edge, which comes from movement of the glass on the thin fire. In the middle you can see it doesn't have it. This one here, that also has Devit on the front. You can see that there. It's a bit of a haze, again, a bit scummy on the back. This one has a bit of dichro. This was dichro fused down on this, and a bit has floated to the surface. So when I tumble that, you'll see that gets pretty much abraded away. But underneath, no scummy bit, because the transparents do a lot better. These ones, again, I'm just going to put it in there because it's got that scummy bit on the bottom. This one here is iridized on the top. And again, once that one's done, you'll see that the iridized surface gets pretty much worn off. And this one is just a piece of dichroic I fused up quickly. You can see it's got dichro all around it. And on the surface it does have some face down, but you'll see it's quite rough, as you can see. So you see what will happen to that when I tumble that. So first thing, this one here, which is the Devit. So what is Devit? Well, devitrification is the glass forming crystals on the surface. This happens for a number of reasons, but more commonly it is just that the glass surface has not been thoroughly cleaned. You really need to clean your glass thoroughly, because if you leave fingerprints on them, or there's a bit of dust on it or something like that, it acts like a seed. It basically starts the process of the crystallization of the glass. Other reasons are maybe it's you've held it too long at certain temperatures, and those temperatures are 650 to 750 C, which is, and I'm not familiar with Fahrenheit, which is 1200 to 1400 Fahrenheit. When you're going through those temperature ranges, you want to go through as quickly as possible. So if you're ramping up going through that, do it as quickly as possible. If you're cooling down, consider maybe crash cooling, which is opening your kiln to get the temperature down through that range as quickly as possible. Other things that can cause this are contamination in your kiln. if you've used your kiln for some other reason and you know, it could just have dust in it from the kiln bricks or something like that. But you could also have contamination in there where you've used it for some other purpose and it's left behind some traces of something that then get onto the glass and start the whole crystallizing process. Things like float glass are very common for this. So if you're doing anything with float glass, if you're doing some glass art, and common things people do is to create, say, little trinket dishes or cheese boards or something like that out of float glass because it's nice and cheap. But unfortunately, it is very prone to devitrification. Just something that I need to say about cleaning your glass. I don't use anything except a window cleaner, and it's a natural window cleaner, so it doesn't have much in the way of chemicals or fragrances or anything like that in it. And I have some dedicated tea towels that I use. Some people use paper towel. I don't like paper towel because it leaves behind lint more often than not. But if you have some dedicated cloths of some type that don't leave behind a lot of lint, and dedicated I mean never use them for anything else, and always clean them without any fragrant detergents or anything like that, clean them as simply as possible, then I think that's the best way to go. Now that scummy bottom that we see there, that one, what is it? Well, it's where the glass is in contact with whatever you're fusing on. That can be kiln wash, it can be thin fire, which is typically what I use. It can be fiberboard or fiber paper, something along those lines. Some of them are better than others and some of them don't cause this problem, but I find with thin fire paper I get it reasonably often. And it's just where the glass is in contact with that. Why is it not in the middle? I've pondered over that one, and I think the reason is that as the glass is fusing, the outside edges move more than obviously the inside edges. I think it's just the movement of that on the thin fire, as the thin fire obviously has burnt out and is degrading. So that's why I think it happens more often than not on that edge there. How can you avoid it? I've never been able to find a way to avoid that completely. One simple way is never use opal glass on the bottom of your pieces. Always use transparent glass, just something like clear or whatever colour you want. That will certainly avoid it. Try different materials. I mean, try the fibre papers and that, or papyrus. I understand papyrus is pretty good. So just try different materials with a few tests and see which one produces the best results for you. And that's about the only way that I know of avoiding that really scummy, horrible bottom on the bottom of your cabs. So now, fixing it. How do you fix it? Well, if you're doing glass art like platters and all of that, you can sandblast it. You can do things like sprinkle clear frit, very fine clear frit over the top and refuse it. There are some issues with that, but it does work pretty well. There are sprays you can get that you can use as well, so that you spray on it. There, even if you look around the net, you'll find there are some homemade sprays that you can use to get rid of Devit. There's acid wash. You can use acid to basically clean that off. You can, if you're really into pain, you can use wet and dry sandpaper to do it, just as long as you've got plenty of time, or you can use diamond pads as well. And anything that will abrade that surface back to clean glass will give you a surface that you can then fire polish again to get a nice polish. Now, my choice to fix this problem, specifically for cabs, is to tumble them. Now, tumbling, it just simply abrades the surface and cleans off all that scummy haze or Devit that's on the top, and that scummy bottom as well. So it's literally just a simple way of abrading the surface. It's similar to sandblasting. or you sitting there for hours with a bit of sandpaper rubbing forever to try and get rid of it. So that's my preference as far as cabs. It's easy, it's straightforward, takes a little bit of time waiting for the tumbler, but hey, I can go and do other things when that's happening. Now, something I need to say, this process is not suitable for any cabs that you have that have a thin surface decoration. Because it's abrasive, it's basically going to remove it. So what I'm talking about here are things like the dichro that we're going to try. The dichroic surface, if you fused it upwards, so with the dichro on the top, this will actually remove the dichro on you. If you fused it with the dichro facing down, so it's encapsulated by glass, that's fine. But it will remove any little bits, as we're going to see in one of these cabs, that are on the edges or are floated to the top. Other things you don't want to do this is cabs that have an iridized surface. Again, it will abrade it away. Cabs that have decals on them, or cabs where you've applied some enamel, maybe you've painted something on. So all of those you don't want to put in a tumbler, because it will basically destroy that surface decoration. So we'll get into this now, and I'll show you basically the process that I use to tumble my cabs. So here you see everything that I need to tumble my cabs. Obviously you'll need a tumbler of some sort. These little Lawtone ones are great, they're not expensive, and this is a double one, but you can get single ones. Obviously the container that everything goes into. I use 80 grit silicon carbide as my abrasive medium, some water to top it up, and what I call filler cabs. Now, these are just a whole bunch of cabs to make up the bulk of the material in the tumbler. You will need to bulk it out because you can't just put those few cabs in. It's different if you've got a large load, maybe you can go in on its own, but you will need to bulk it out in some way. Some people use plastic ones. Look, I just use those. I just accumulated those over a period of time from different jobs, and I also have another one here of bigger pieces as well. So that's everything that I need. So let's get on with it. Basically, I'll just take all of these cabs, put them in my container, and then I'll bulk it out. Now these are, you want a mix of sizes in here. I'll just fill this up to about a third to a half. Well, that's going to get me up to about a third. I'll add a couple of more different pieces in here, just to bulk it out a bit more. And that should be good. I then add my silicon carbide. I add about 2 tablespoons normally. In this one, I'll go maybe 1.5. And then I usually spill it everywhere as well. And then I fill it up with water. So I'll try and show you that. Well, don't fill it up. I fill it up to just below the level of the cabs. Don't overfill it, because your abrasiveness will suffer, and it'll take longer to get rid of all that scummy material. So you can see, I think there, that it is just below the level of the cabs. Close it all up, nice and firm. In my tumbler over here, and I'll turn her on. And we'll come back to it in a few hours. I'll just leave it on there, have a look. Usually a few hours is enough for just that little bit of haziness that you've seen there. if it was really bad, I would probably tumble it for, 5-6 hours. Okay everyone, it's about 3.5 hours later. I have emptied out the container, and that's what we've got. And I have checked to make sure that there's been enough tumbling to remove the Devit. This water that you see here, that I will put into a container, a large container, where I will let it settle and for quite a while until I've got nice clear water on top. That clear water will then be taken off and used in the garden. The remainder of what's there will be allowed to settle further, and over a period of time when I do tumbling, I will allow that to accumulate until I've got a very thick sludge. That will then be disposed of into non-recyclable containers and put into the rubbish. That is the only way I know of disposing of it, and I've spoken to our council, and that is the best solution that we can come up with. Now, word of warning, don't pour this water down your drain, because it will clog your drain for sure. The glass will settle out, and it sets pretty hard, so definitely don't put that down your drain. Now, the silicon carbide grit, I keep that, drain off all the water, clean it, and then I will settle it out and let it evaporate so it goes completely dry, and I'll put that in a container and I'll reuse that a few times. The cabs will be cleaned and washed thoroughly to remove all bits of grit, and I'll be back to you shortly and I'll show you the cabs. Okay, something I just need to mention before I go through these cabs is to separate your cabs from the grit. I just use a kitchen sieve and wash the cabs off through that, and that makes it very easy to separate the grit out from the cabs. Now, as far as the cabs are concerned, you can see here that you've got a nice frosted surface to this whole thing. Everything has been abraded off the Devit and that scummy bit on the back. These are all like that. They've been nicely cleaned up on the back. The iridized, you can see that the iridized coating is pretty much gone. Maybe there's a couple of little bits left, but it's been pretty much abraded away. And the dichro on that one there has gone, but there's a little bit of dichro you can see that's been capped with a clear. And finally, that bit of dichro that I quickly put up, you can see actually some of the dichro has survived, but it's been pretty badly eroded away. Anywhere that has been sort of exposed has been eroded away. These areas are probably because they've been protected a little bit, because they're in deep, if you know what I mean, in crevices. So I've never done that one before, just like that. I've done dichro cabs that the dichro has been exposed, but not just a rough piece like this. So that's interesting for both of us. So now these will go into the kiln to be fire polished, and then I'll be back. So let's have a look at these cabs. Okay, excuse my fingerprints, but you can see there that the Devit on that cab is all gone. It's nice polished, and on the back, that scummy back is gone. So it's nice and clean. Unfortunately, on the iridized one, the iridized surface has gone completely. And on the dichroic one here, as I said, that dichroic on the top, that little bit of dichroic is gone completely. But everything is polished up nice. This one here, I think we had some Devit on this as well. I've probably got my fingerprints all over it. That's my fingerprints. But it's nice and polished. And on the dichro, while it has polished up, you can see that the dichro has been damaged quite a bit. Well, that's about it. I hope you enjoyed that, and it was of some help. In the background you may hear is my wife making some jewellery. And yes, please subscribe if you want to see more of those videos. Turn on those notifications and share it with anybody it may help. And I'll see you in the next video. So bye for now.